The Pursuit of Moby Lipid. 20,000 leagues under the way. Submarine Amino cut through the cold black water like a needle through muscle tissue. Purposeful, precise, and a little painful if you thought about it too long. Captain Proteus Steak stood at the helm with a rigid posture of a man who had never in his life eaten an empty calorie. Lean in a way that suggested he'd been compressed by some great force, cheekbones sharp enough to fillet something, eyes dark and fixed on the sonar screen with the intensity of a man who believed deeply and without irony that the ocean owed him something. Depth, he barked. Ensign Glyso swiveled in his pilot's chair. Glyso was the kind of person who arrived everywhere silently too fast and left before finishing his sentence. His leg bounced. His fingers tapped the console at irregular rhythms. He wore his uniform slightly wrong. Collar up, boots unlaced. And he had the look of a man perpetually surprised to find himself exactly where he was standing. 400 fathoms, Captain? Maybe 5. Probably 4. Could be 6. There's a current pulling us. Are we going left? I think we're going. Should we go left? Proteus did not look at him. I asked for depth, Glyso, not a crisis. Right. Yes, 400. Glyso squinted at the display. Sir, the sonar is showing something big at bearing 270. Big. Like structurally significantly big. How big? Glyso spread his arms as wide as they could go, and then, apparently deciding that wasn't enough, he stood up from his chair and spread his arms wider, puffing out his cheeks. Glyso, really big, sir. Proteus finally turned. In the green glow of the instruments, his jaw was a hard line. He reached up to the periscope, housing above him, and gripped it like a man setting himself against something that wasn't physically turbulence. It's him, he said. Quiet, almost reverent. Moby Lipid. Glyso sat back slowly. For the first time since the shift began, his legs stopped bouncing. You really think it's the whale, sir? 12 years I have been in these waters. I have tracked krill migrations and thermoclines and the ghost signals of pressure ridges. I have eaten nothing but lean cuts and egg whites, and I have slept exactly 6 hours per night, and I have not. His voice dropped. I have not forgotten what it felt like to be breached on the Lucien, and took my best crew with him in the deep. Glyso was quiet for a moment. Then, was the mission before I joined, sir? You know it was. Right. I wasn't there for that. I was on the fast carb circuit at the time. Different kettle of fish. He paused. Fish is protein, actually. Did you know salmon has Glyso? Sir? Stop talking. Stopping, sir. The submarine hummed. Somewhere behind the instrument panel, a pipe dripped in a syncopated rhythm that was either soothing or maddening, depending on your neurological constitution. Glyso lasted 43 seconds. It's just, if it's Moby Lipid, I mean, the report said he's massive, sir. 14 meters, some say more. And he's not just fat in the conventional sense, right? He's got this whole energy reserve thing happening, where he's been accumulating. I know what he's accumulating. And there were 3 crew. 3? Plus the cook. But Chief Lyson doesn't even really count in an emergency. She almost just gets very stressed and starts making broth. Chief Lyson's broth was sustained this crew through 6 months of deep water pursuit, Proteus said. Show some respect. It's very good broth, Glyso conceded. Very completely amino profile. I'm not disparaging the broth. From the galley, through the thin bulkhead, came the voice of Chief Lyson herself, a small, precise woman who took flavor seriously and nonsense not at all. "I can hear you both," she called. "I'm making broth. It's going to be excellent. Please, find the whale." Proteus turned back to the sonar. The blip at the bearing 270 had moved slightly north. Slow, unhurried. The movements of something that didn't believe anything in the world could catch it. "Adjust course," Proteus said. 270. Ahead, slow. Glyco's hands grew to the controls with a slightly too enthusiastic energy that made Proteus' eyes twitch. The Amino turned in the water, smooth and quiet. "Captain," Glyco said, "I'm now pulling up a secondary screen. I'm getting a signal inference from long range. Something else is out there. Big fleet signature. Lots of holes, moving fast, probably too fast, honestly, burning through fuel at a rate that's, The Armada," Proteus said. His voice has taken a different quality, something between contempt and exhaustion. "The Carbohydrate Navy." Glyco looked up. "They're here. Now. They're always here." He pulled his coat tighter, though the submarine was not cold. "They're everywhere. That's the whole problem with them." All hands on starch. The HMS Glucose was the flagship of the Carbohydrate Armada. It was significant if you could see it clearly, which was difficult because there's always something in the way. The deck was, to put it gently, crowded. Not staffed, crowded. There were sailors everywhere, at the rails, on the stairs, sitting on top of equipment that wasn't designed to be sat on, eating things, arguing, reorganizing piles of rope into other, slightly different piles of rope. There were 17 ships in a fleet of a good day, and a good day was rare because the Armada had a persistent tendency to acquire more ships without retiring any of the old ones. So the fleet was, as of this morning, 23 vessels strong, and someone had authorized the purchase of order of 6 more without telling anyone where they were going to go. Fleet Admiral Sucra Ose stood at the helm of the Glucose like a woman who had been assigned to conduct a symphony and arrived to find the orchestra had already started without her, was playing 4 different pieces simultaneously. She was bright, Admiral Sucra, generally crackling bright, the kind of person to light up to arrive at slightly before everyone else. She wore her admiral coat with the epaulets that were just slightly too large, which gave her the look of someone who had recently unexpectedly been promoted. Her eyes were quick and warm. She moved fast. She thought fast. She started sentences fast, and sometimes finished other people's sentences instead of her own. "Right," she announced into the general chaos of the deck. "Listen up. We have confirmed sightings. Confirmed. Of Moby Lipid. At the bearings. What was that bearing? Ribo? Ensign Ribos." Her second checked his notes. He was a methodical young man, trying very hard to function in an environment that did not reward method. 270, ma'am. That was 20 minutes ago, and we haven't recalibrated since then, but because the calibration station is currently under a pile of life jackets, that's someone. Right, yes, fine. The Admiral waved at the hand. 270. Let's say 275 just to be safe. No, 270. Stick with that number. The number's good. She then turned around. Corporal Fruto. Corporal Fruto was the Armada's quartermaster, a stocky, earnest man who made up for his inability to prioritize just being enthusiastic about everything equally, which had the same practical effect, but felt more cheerful. "Ma'am, what's the status of the lunch orders?" Fruto opened his ledger, closed it, opened it again. So the good news is everyone on the ships 1 through 9 has received a meal. And the ships 10 through 23, ships 10 through 14 received meals, but they were the meals intended for the ships 1 through 9. Silence. So ships 1 through 9, they had received meals intended for 10 through 14, yes ma'am. So everyone has food? Everyone has food, ma'am. Not necessarily their food. There are some complaints. Lieutenant Malton, ship 12 on low glycemic protocol, and received a basket of white rolls. He'll survive. He said he was a personal attack, ma'am. He was filed a formal grievance with the Nutritional Ethics Board. We have a Nutritional Ethics Board? We do now. He started it. He also is the chair. The Admiral rubbed her temples in a quick, percussive way of someone whose headache is not from tension, but from sheer cognitive velocity. And the new ships, the 6 new ships? Fruto's expression became carefully neutral in a way that someone who knew that they were about to deliver news that was not technically their fault. They've arrived, ma'am. All 6. 7, actually. There seems to have been a miscommunication at the shipyard. We ordered 6. Yes, ma'am, and they built 7. They said the 7th was a gift, a complimentary vessel, a gesture of goodwill. Where are we supposed to put a complimentary vessel? Currently, it's moored between ship 17 and ship 16, and everyone agrees it's in the way, but no one wants to seem ungrateful. Admiral Sucra turned to look at the fleet behind her. 23 ships, 24 now. The glucose had led the formation. Behind it stretched the Carbohydrate Armada, and it could be more generous to be called a wedge formation and was, more accurately, vaguely directional cloud. The ships were different sizes, different speeds, different purpose, some sleek and fast, some broad and slow, some deeply confused about why they were doing there, and all of them flying the gold-green flag of the Armada, all of them moving in an agitated, roughly towards the whale. It's too big, she said quietly. Ribo stepped up beside her. He was the only person on deck not in motion, which gave him a certain ballast. The fleet, ma'am? We keep on adding ships and we're never asked why. We're burning more fuel to carry more ships and carry more crew, and we need more food that requires more ships to transport, and it's, what's the word? Unsustainable, Ribos offered. No, well, yes, but the word I was thinking was ironic. We're a fleet so large that we can barely function chasing a creature that survives because it stores energy efficiently. She looked at him. Does that mean something worth sitting with, Ribos? Everything you say is worth sitting with, ma'am. That's what makes you difficult to work for. She laughed, short and genuine. I want to talk to the sub-captain. Ribos blinked. The Amino, the protein submarine, Captain Proteus. He's been on the hunt longer than any of us. He knows Moby Lipid's patterns. We could share intelligence. He doesn't like the Armada, ma'am. He's made that known extensively in writing. There was a letter. What did the letter say? Ribos cleared his throat. The Carbohydrate Armada is an undisciplined, overcrowded, inefficient, energy-burning catastrophe that mistakes quantity for strategy. End of the letter. Sucra considered this. He's not wrong about most of that. He signed it with protein-fueled contempt. He underlined contempt. Open a channel, she said, and get me this sandwich. Something that's actually nutritional density, nothing whatever fructose sends up. Last time I got a bread roll with another bread roll inside it. The crew calls that double-decker, Ribos said. The crew needs fiber and consequences. She turned back to the horizon. Someone out there, deep in the dark water. The whale was moving, slow and sure, and ancient and unbothered. For a moment, watching the impossible span her fleet stretched behind her, she felt something she could not quite name. No doubt, not exactly. More like a particular loneliness of being the fastest thing in the race that you're not sure you should be running. Then Fructose arrived with a bread roll containing another bread roll, and the moment passed. The Ballad of the Deep Lipid. There's a place in the ocean where the light does not reach. Not dark the way rooms are dark, or the way the forests are dark at night, but dark the way time is dark, the way the past is dark, the way things are dark when they have been dark so long that the dark is simply what they are. Moby Lipid moved through the darkness, like a thought moving through sleep. He was vast, not monstrous, vast, which is a different quality entirely. He had the size of something that had earned its size through patience, through years of slow accumulation, through the particular discipline of existing in a world that constantly demanded he spend himself in choosing quietly not to. His skin was the color of deep water, not quite white, not quite silver, something in between the ocean no name for. He moved without sound, almost without effort, as if motion itself was merely a courtesy he extended to physics. He was not alone in his memory. Somewhere in the part of the consciousness that whales use for remembering, a part that is deeper and stranger and more patient than that kind humans use, he carried the shape of another presence, a warmth, the particular resonance of a voice that moved through water, not as sound waves, but as meaning. Her name, and the language that whales use, was something that translated roughly as the one who completes the equation. She had been there, and then she had not been. He followed the thermal gradient southeast, an old instinct, a migration route that had not changed in 10,000 years. The deep ocean had its own geography, ridges and valleys and currents that ran rivers beneath rivers, each with its own temperature, its own salinity, its own memory. Moby Lipid moved through the way as locals move through a city, not following signs, just knowing. At the depth where the pressure could have crushed anything less structurally committed, he paused. Something's different. He hung in the water, perfectly still, and listened. There, to north and west, the mechanical heartbeat of a submarine engine, small, precise. A single needle of the sound in the deep dark. He had heard the engine before. He carried its frequency that way he carried everything, slowly, completely, without forgetting. And there, further north, a different kind of noise. Many engines, the overlapping, slightly out of sync rhythm of a large feet moving with too much enthusiasm. This was sound he also knew. He had been following him on and off for years. It was the sound of something that meant, well, never quite. He considered both sounds. He turned with the measure of grace, something that he had never in his life been in a hurry, and began moving south. Not fleeing. Whales of his particular nature did not flee. He was redirecting. There's a meaningful difference, though it's the one that submarines rarely appreciate. As he moved, he made a sound, low and vast and complex. The kind of sound that doesn't travel through water so much as water for a moment, shifting the medium itself. It was the sound he made when he was looking. It was a sound he had made making in one form or another for years. It was a question. It had no answer yet. He thought of her, not in the way that humans think of loss, as a wound, the way whales think of it, as an absence with a shape, like the space and water left with something that moved through it, a shape you could still feel even when the thing itself is gone. She had been there, in waters north here, in the time before the engines came. She had the energy he did not have, quick, bright, easily sparked, easily spent. He was slow where she was fast. He was deep where she was surface running. He stored where she spent. We completed each other's micros. She had once communicated, which in whale language was both a practical observation and the most romantic thing you could say. The ocean stretched around him, cold and immense, and patient in the same way he was patient, which was perhaps why he felt at home in it. He dove deeper. The engines faded. The pressures built. In an enormous quiet of the deepest water, Moby Lipid continued his search, ancient and purposeful, and carrying his question with him like a lantern through the dark. Krill or be krilled? The signal came through at 0340 hours ship time. The Proteus was awake, of course. He was always awake. Glyco suspected the captain existed in some biological protocol that eliminates sleep as an inefficiency. He was standing at the sonar station, coat on, hands clasping behind his back, and the blip reappeared, larger now, slower, moving in a pattern that was almost circular. He's searching, Proteus said. Glycos rolled his chair over. Searching for what? The Proteus didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice had the quality of something had, not cold, but deep, like something surfacing from a long way down. They say he lost his mate years ago, before any of us were in these waters, before the hunts began. Glyco looked at the blip, thought about it. That's actually quite sad, sir. Everything meaningful involves loss, Glyco. Right, sir. Is that is that why you're hunting him? Because he represents loss? I'm hunting him because he took my crew. Right, yes. Although, to be fair, I read the incident report, and it does suggest that he might have been in the migration path, and the Lucian did glyco. I'll stop, please. The new signal interrupted them. The comm panel lit up from the incoming hail of a frequency Proteus recognized immediately. He stared at it for 3 full seconds before picking up. Amino, this is Admiral Sucra Ose of the Carbohydrate Armanda, and we're going to assume that you know who I am. I know who you are, Proteus said. I wrote you a letter. A memorable letter. I framed it. I want to talk about Moby Lipid. Proteus said nothing. His jaw moved slightly, working something over. We've been tracking him, Sucra continued, and we have his current position. He surfaced briefly at a bearing at 190 40 minutes ago. We have 3 ships with visual confirmation. 3 ships, Proteus said. Out of your 30? 24. Your fleet is 24 vessels, 24 strong. Your fleet is 24 chaotic. A brief pause on the other end. That's fair, she said. But the candor of this surprised him. He was 24 ships can box a whale. 1 submarine, however precise, cannot. You know that. Glyco was watching with the expression of someone watching a very tightly compressed spring. Proteus looked at the sonar, at the blip, at the course projections on the secondary screen that had been running and rerunning for hours. What are your terms? He said finally. No terms. We share positioning, we share approaching vectors, we coordinate the encirclement. You go deep, you know step patterns better than anyone. We handle the surface. If we catch him, she paused. We figure out the rest afterward. That's not a plan. No, it's a start. Another silence in the galley. Chief Lyson was awake. He could smell the broth. There were sounds of quiet, precise motion. She always seemed to know when something was about to happen. All right, Proteus said. It'll cost him something, but you could hear it. On the glucose, the Admiral actually closed her eyes for a moment. Good. Sharing coordinates now. She paused again. Captain. What? The acoustic team on Ship 9 picked up something unusual when the whale surfaced. A vocalization, long, low, and layered. They have never heard anything like it. One of the younger analysts started calling it the creamy song, a beat. Do you know it? Proteus was very still. Captain? I know it, he said. What is it? He took a long breath. The kind that fills more than lungs. When the Lucian went down before the crew was lost, and a few minutes before the breach and the sinking, the whale surfaced alongside us. Not attacking, just present. And he made that sound, that exact sound. He paused. My acoustic officer at the time, Lieutenant Cole, she said it reminded her of something that was been rendered down slowly over a long time. Something rich, something that had given up on everything that was quick and sharp in it to become something else entirely. Lysa would stop breathing. Cole said that a sound like that doesn't come from hunger or territory or fear. It comes from a place where all that has already been spent and what's left underneath is just wanting. Pure wanting. Distilled down to its simplest form. The same way you render fat slowly and what's left in the clearest, most concentrated thing. No water, no noise, just the essential. He stopped. She called it the creamy song. She said it was the sound of something that had been patient for so long that its grief had become something smooth. Silence on the comm. The ocean moved. What happened to Lieutenant Cole? Sucra asked quietly. She was on the Lucine, Proteus said. The comm held between them for a moment. So when you hear it, Sucra said finally, you hear her. I hear all of them. His voice hadn't changed in register. It's something and had become very careful, the way you handle something you've carried a long time without letting yourself feel the weight. And I hear you've been looking for the same that I'm looking for. And I can't decide if it makes me angrier or if it makes me something else entirely. Glyco looked at the sonar, the circular pattern, the slow layered spiral, something searching. He's singing it now, Glyco said. Not to anyone, just to the instruments. I know, Proteus said. I can feel it in the hull. The convergence took 2 hours. From below, the Amino ran dark and silent at 300 meters. Sensors active, every non-essential system powered down, moving with the deliberations of a creature that had nothing to prove. Above, at the surface in shallow depth, the Armada spread into an arc that stretched across 4 kilometers of the ocean, a perfect crescent of ships moving in position with a cheerful noise of something that was well intended, yet not quite grateful. How are they doing? Proteus asked. Glycos was monitoring the surface signals. Ships 1 through 12 are in position. Ships 13 through 19 are almost in position. Ship 20, that's the big grain hauler they converted. She's running slow. And the new ship, the complimentary one, it's wedged between 16 and 17 again, and no one seems able to explain why. And the whale? Still in the same bearing. Still doing the circular thing, Glyco hesitated. He's singing, sir. The creamy song. It's the hydrophones are having trouble resolving it. It keeps folding back on itself. Proteus said nothing. It sounds like it's been going on a long time, Glyco said, like it started before we were even born and kept going after. The instruments hummed. The Amino moved through the black water. Above them, 24 ships were drawing the net closed. Their engines a low constellation of noise that should have been a warning enough for any creature. And yet the whale continued his slow circles, his calling, his patient and ancient search. Captain, Glyco said, I want to ask you something, and I want to not immediately tell me to stop talking. I pause. Ask. If we catch him, if this works, what happens to him? Proteus was quiet for a long time, long enough that Glycos wasn't sure he'd answer. That's what the Admiral and I were figuring out afterward, he said finally. Right, yeah. Glyco looked at the sonar, at the shape of the whale. Not a blip anymore, at the depths and range, but a defined presence, something that was dimension, weight, and movement. He's been singing for her for years. Yes. And you've been hunting him for years. Yes. We can hear each other now. The sub, the fleet, the whale, we're all in the same water. Glyco's voice had gone somewhat quieter than usual. Doesn't it seem like you've been searching for something that we can't get back? Proteus said nothing. I'll drop it, Glyco said. You don't have to drop it, Proteus said, which was the closest he had come to anything soft in 6 months at sea. Just ahead, slow, maintain depth. Glycos nodded, turning back to its console. Above them, the Armada's arc lightened. Signals crossed back and forth across the fleet as Ribo's coordinator approached vectors with mathematical patience, and Fructose distributed something called an emergency whale attack snack pack to every ship in the formation, the contents of which were unclear, but everyone agreed arrived at a slightly wrong temperature. Below, the Amino moved in its final approach bearing. Ahead of them, both, neither fleeing nor wanting, simply being the oldest way of anything that had ever been in the ocean. Moby Lipid turned in the dark and made a sound. It moved through the water, outward in a direction, through the hull of the submarine and through the 24 hulls of the fleet above. It was neither frightening nor angry. It was not asking for a quarter. It carried the weight of everything that had been refined away over the years until only the essential remained. Are you there? The ships closed in. The instruments lit. The sonar screen blazed with the whale's enormous signature, now showing 300 meters depth, now 250, now climbing, rising towards the surface with a slow, inexcrutable momentum, as if he had finally heard something worth surfacing for. Glyco's hands hovered over the controls. Proteus gripped the periscope housing, and on the glucose, Admiral Sucra leaned over the rail, into the salt dark. The creamy song rose with him, growing richer, fuller, closer, until the whole of the Amino was vibrating with it, until the glycose had filled his back teeth, until even Chief Lyson had appeared in the galley doorway holding her ladle, listening. And then, whether the net hold, whether the whale breached or dove, whether Proteus found what he was hunting, only way he deserved to find, these are questions that deep water does not answer quickly. The ocean keeps its accounts in patience, not in time. And somewhere below the fleet, Moby Lipid was still singing.